What an odd guy, I remember thinking as Mr. Mahoney shuffled into my 6th grade classroom for the first time. Crumply brown suit, crooked tie, flush face, right hand nervously shaking at his waist, and somehow he already had chalk in his hair. He stuttered out his first words to the class, and he hadn't even finished his introductory sentence before I knew he was a goner. I'd never seen a grown man look so squirrely. The principal should have adequately warned him we were a bunch of sharks, and we smelled blood in the water. The pranks and jokes started small. Mr. Mahoney was asking for it, in a way. He was so unprepared, so utterly clueless, it was impossible not to mess with him. One activity required Mr. Mahoney to draw a clock on the chalkboard. The class counted along together as he drew the numbers on the circular clock face 1, 2, 3, 4 louder, and louder as the numbers progressed. And when we got to 12, we kept going. 13. Everyone shouted in unison. Mr. Mahoney drew 13 o'clock in white chalk. The class erupted in laughter, and Mr. Mahoney turned red in embarrassment. He sheepishly erased the 13, stuttered something incomprehensible, and his trembling hand dropped the eraser. It made a eraser-shaped chalk smudge on his pants. We laughed harder. Mr. Mahoney picked up the eraser, and he banged at his pants with his hand to remove the smudge. The problem was, he was still holding the eraser. His entire brown pant leg turned ghost white. Kids laughed so hard they fell from their chairs. That was the moment I pitied Mr. Mahoney for the first time. Only I couldn't stop laughing with the others. My two friends, Carson Starkey and Dylan Newcomb, everyone called him Nuke, were the worst offenders. They were fans of the classics, at first attacks on Mr. Mahoney's chair, turning everyone's desks backwards before Mr. Mahoney came into the classroom. Stuff like that, but their pranks soon progressed. On one occasion, Mr. Mahoney asked the class for the answer to 9 multiplied by 5. Nuke raised his hand and mouthed the words 45, but said nothing. K-cow. K-cow? Can't hear. You, Mr. Mahoney said, walking closer. Nuke mouthed the words again, looking confused. Speak up. Pa. Please, Mr. Mahoney said, moving a foot from Nuke's face. F-O-R-T-Y-F-I-V-E. Nuke shouted into Mr. Mahoney's face. Mr. Mahoney jumped back and tripped over a desk, sprawling to the floor. The classroom laughter reached a fevered pitch, and then we saw it. A tiny blob of liquid on Mr. Mahoney's pants, near the crotch. The guy had pissed himself. Mr. Mahoney stumbled to his feet and ran out of the room, but not before tripping one more time. The class was in stitches, everyone but me. I wasn't laughing this time, but I didn't come to Mr. Mahoney's defense. I didn't tell anyone to shut up and leave the poor guy alone. I just let it happen. That afternoon, Nuke, Starkey, and I were called down to the principal's office. Nuke and Starkey were the dynamic duo of classroom tomfoolery, but me being friends with them, well, I guess I was guilty by association. Mr. Mahoney sat in the corner, wrinkly brown suit and tie, chalk and hair, looking down at the ground. I detected the scent of urine in the air, and so did Nuke. He exaggeratedly plugged his nose. Mr. Mahoney's hand trembled. The principal lectured us for 10 minutes. He jabbed his finger at our chests, and he demanded we stop harassing Mr. Mahoney. There would be dire consequences if we didn't. Mr. Mahoney said nothing. Nuke shot him the stink eye the entire time. I can't believe he told on us, Nuke whispered to me as we left the principal's office. There was venom in his voice. Nuke and Starkey demanded revenge, and lots of it. They quickly devised the prank to end all pranks, the ultimate revenge on Mr. Mahoney for tattling on students. He's such a fraidy cat, Nuke sneered. I'll make him piss so hard he'll drown in his own fucking pants. I unwillingly went along with the whole thing truthfully. I thought my part in the prank wasn't that big of a deal. I saw myself as the getaway driver in a bank robbery. I wasn't robbing the bank. I wasn't the one committing the crime. Sure, I was helping, but it wasn't that big of a deal. But looking back on it now, I was too weak to say no to my friends. I should have said no. But when Nuke and Starkey went over the plan, I merely nodded and said, okay. My part was easy, and Mr. Mahoney might not even know I was there. Somehow, that made it okay. The prank to end all pranks occurred on a Tuesday night. Nuke called Mr. Mahoney and pretended to be Mr. Newcomb, and he demanded a teacher-parent conference at the Newcomb household. Mr. Mahoney should have known better, but he agreed to come over to the Newcomb home for a chat about Dylan's recent behavior. It was all set. Nuke's parents were gone that night. It was just me, Nuke, and Starkey. I sat in the basement next to the fuse box. Starkey sat next to me, unable to contain his giggles. I heard the doorbell ring and footsteps upstairs. The door opened, and 2 sets of footsteps walked to the family room. Nuke and Mr. Mahoney are sitting on the couch. I waited for my signal, and it came 1 minute later, a loud crash. Nuke just accidentally knocked over the lamp. I flipped the main power switch to the house. The entire home went black. More footsteps. Nuke is telling Mr. Mahoney that he'll check the fuse box. He'll be back in a second. The basement door creaked open and footsteps echoed down the steps. Nuke is descending the basement steps. A dark figure appeared next to us. It's Nuke. "Do it, Starkey," Nuke whispered. Starkey dumped corn syrup all over the front of Nuke's shirt. Nuke stifled his laughter while Starkey slipped a rubber clown mask over his own head and picked up the silver butcher's knife. "Let's do this," Starkey huffed through the latex. Nuke stumbled upstairs first, with Starkey trailing 5 feet behind. I reluctantly followed from a short distance with a Polaroid camera, and I watched the whole thing unfold. Nuke appeared from the basement door, clutching his chest and sobbing for help. Mr. Mahoney ran over to him. "Oh my... God. Mr. Mahoney blubbered, touching the corn syrup on Nuke's shirt. The killer clown then emerged with a raised butcher's knife in his hand. Mr. Mahoney screamed and grabbed onto Nuke's shirt. At the collar it ripped off, and Mr. Mahoney fell to the floor. He backed up and trembled against the wall, still clutching the torn collar. I watched him quiver in the darkness. "Do it!" yelled Nuke. "Take his picture." I brought up the camera to my face, but I couldn't do it. Starkey made some monster noises and inched closer to Mr. Mahoney. Our substitute teacher sobbed quietly. "Jesus Christ," said Nuke, pointing at Mr. Mahoney. "He pissed all over my fucking floor." I looked down and saw piss emptying from the bottom of Mr. Mahoney's left pant leg. I had never felt more sorry for another human being in my whole life. It felt like we were torturing an injured puppy. "Tail the picture," Nuke insisted. I didn't do it. I just dropped the camera to the floor, and it shattered into 3 pieces. Starkey removed his mask and tossed it to Mr. Mahoney. It landed in his lap. "We're just joking around, Mr. Mahoney," Starkey said. "It's just a prank." Mr. Mahoney put one arm against the wall, braced himself, and clambered to his feet. He looked at the torn collar in one hand, the clown mask in the other, sniffled and shuffled out the front door. "He took my mask." Starkey lamented. "Let him keep the stupid thing," Nuke muttered. Mr. Mahoney wasn't at school the next day. In fact, he never came back. Nuke, Starkey, and I waited each day to be called down to the principal's office to answer for our prank, but that call never came. Our class was assigned a new substitute teacher, and life in the 6th grade marched on. 3 weeks later, a package arrived for our class. It was a stack of math homework that Mr. Mahoney had graded but had never returned to us. The sub passed back the worksheets, each meticulously marked up and graded. But Nuke's and Starkey's weren't marked up like the rest of the class, no crossouts or corrections. Mr. Mahoney had just written the same thing on each of their essays in blazingly red ink. "Nice job. I'm looking forward to seeing more of you soon." I didn't get a worksheet back. I quickly thumbed through my binder and found the worksheet uncompleted. Never was I so happy to have forgotten to do my homework. "What a load of crap," Nuke snickered. He crumpled up the sheet and tossed it on the floor. Starkey did the same. I slipped my unfinished sheet back into my binder, and I wondered what Mr. Mahoney was doing at the moment. Maybe he was sitting alone, hands shaking nervously at his side and tears running down his cheek. Or maybe he's sharpening an axe. I shuddered, but the image didn't leave my head. I put my head down on my binder, closed my eyes. "I'm sorry, Mr. Mahoney," I whispered to no one. "I'm so sorry." For years I waited for Mr. Mahoney's revenge to come. I expected him to pounce around a dark corner on the street, or I often pictured him slipping on that clown mask and appearing at the foot of my bed with that axe that he was sharpening in my daydream. His right hand trembles like usual, but then it tightens around the wooden handle. He plunges the axe deep into my chest. I probably deserved it for what we did to him, but he never came. I grew up, graduated high school, and then college. I married and got a good job. Nuke and Starkey were not so lucky. Nuke tore up both of his knees in high school, and he lost his football scholarship. Cocaine was his medicine and coping mechanism. He still went to college, but dropped out after one term. Nuke moved home and dealt drugs from his parents' basement, eventually selling to an undercover cop. He resisted arrest, fled in his car with his girlfriend, and he wrapped his car around a pole. Nuke's girlfriend flew through the windshield and died on the scene. My childhood friend now sits in jail, and the doctors say he'll never walk again. Starkey graduated college and immediately got engaged. 2 months later, his wife was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Faced with daunting medical bills, Starkey embezzled from his company and was promptly caught. Weeks later, Starkey's daughter was crushed underneath a falling entertainment unit at the family home. She lived, but she was paralyzed from the neck down. Starkey took out a massive insurance policy and threw himself off a building. I received a letter from Nuke not too long ago. He's been doing a lot of reading while in jail books about hexes and witchcraft. He's convinced Mr. Mahoney used supernatural tactics to get his revenge upon him and Starkey. Mahoney hexed us, Nuke wrote. He left my house that night with a piece of my shirt and Starkey's mask. If someone has an item that belongs to you, he can use witchcraft to place a curse. That explains why you are completely fine. My life is fucked and Starkey is dead. Just think about it. I thought about it. I thought it was bullshit. A week later, I saw Mr. Mahoney at a dive bar, miles out of town down an old country road. At least, I thought it was him. He was slumped in a corner booth, half passed out, 3 sheets to the wind. He was still wearing that ratty brown suit, but he looked like he'd aged 40 years. His right hand anxiously shook on the table. I watched as the man sauntered to his feet and stumbled toward the door. It was the same stumble of an awkward, nervous substitute teacher from 20 years ago. I followed the man outside. It was a windy night. I lit up a smoke and watched curiously as the drunken man leaned against a wall and tried to light a cigarette of his own. He struggled mightily to keep his lighter ablaze in the breeze. It kept extinguishing. I approached and offered him my lighter. It lit right up. Smoke danced from the tip of the man's cigarette. We stood in silence and smoked for a few minutes. Finally, I asked, "Did you ever substitute teach in a 6th grade classroom?" The man's head froze up. His eyes looked straight ahead, never at me. He inhaled deeply from his cigarette. "Are you Mr. Mahoney?" I asked slowly. I looked into his eyes, but the man did not look at me. He said nothing. For a moment, I doubted if it was even him. I looked away. "I just wanted to say that I'm sorry," I said. I walked 20 feet away when the man called out to me. The thanks for the light. I sat in my car in the parking lot, just watching the man outside the bar. I thought about the past and the horrible things we did to Mr. Mahoney. I thought about Nuke and Starkey and how shitty their lives turned out to be. And then Nuke's letter popped into my head. If someone has an item that belongs to you, he can use witchcraft to place a curse. I patted my jean pockets. Just think about it. I patted the pocket of my sweatshirt. Mahoney hexed us. I patted my jean pockets again, and I finally felt it. I didn't feel it the first time. The lighter. Thank God. I pulled it from my pocket, studied it for a moment to make sure it was mine, and I exhaled slowly. I smiled to myself, and I shook my head. I was being stupid. There's no such things as hexes and curses. Nuke and Starkey were the victims of horrible choices and bad luck. There's no such thing as witchcraft. I examined the lighter and I turned it in my hand. For a moment, I wished witchcraft was real. If that man outside the bar was Mr. Mahoney, he deserved the opportunity to ruin my life. I thought about walking outside and placing the lighter in his hand, but instead I smirked and pocketed it. I was being ridiculous. The man outside the bar was stumbling around. He was chasing something down the road, a tiny cigarette butt. My cigarette butt, the one I had just smoked. The wind picked it up, and the butt blew down the dark country road. The man limped after it, hand trembling at his waist. What an odd guy.